The key point of writing a report is telling a story. There's a little paragraph in Alice in Wonderland where the white rabbit says to the king, "Where shall I begin?" And the king says, "Begin at the beginning, go on until you come to the end, and then stop." And that's really the essence of report writing. It's the bringing together of information and the bringing together of the conclusions that you've drawn from that information and the evidence that you've assembled in order to reach a conclusion. Now, the conclusion has to follow from what you've said in the beginning and the middle parts of the report. The conclusion can't suddenly spring out of nowhere, so that it makes a logical whole that you set out at the beginning and say, this is what we were asked to do. This is how we approached it. This is what we did. This is what we discovered. This is what it means. It's the who, what, where, when, why of report writing, really. So being a competent report writer is simply the ability to assemble all the information that you've gathered, and this can be considerable. If you're doing a due diligence investigation in terms of mergers and acquisitions type work, for example, you may go into an organisation to look at all of their operations. You can look at their customer base, their suppliers, their accounting systems, their financial results, their budgets, their forecasts, their cash flow, a whole mass of stuff which you've then got to synthesize into a report that can be read by somebody who is not financially literate, usually a chief executive or a chairperson of a company, who might be a very good manager, but isn't somebody who would appreciate the complexities of financial reporting. So you have to tell a story in a way that somebody else can understand it, who is not necessarily an accountant. Accountants should not be people who talk only to themselves. So the essence of good report writing is synthesizing a deal of information and reordering it in a logical fashion that makes sense, that draws conclusions based on evidence and bridges any gaps with some logical steps so that these can be explained and justified in the long run. There is nothing worse than having a report that you've spent hours and hours and hours crafting fall apart because you've made a misstep or not applied logic to the evidence that you've got in order to produce a conclusion. Producing a false conclusion devalues the report, and it also devalues the person or the firm who's written it.